Welcome to another season at the Canadian Corporate Soccer League. The objective of this video is to describe how we manage rules in our leagues. So, you want to play? First, make sure you have signed up your company team. The league office will confirm your league spot only when you receive an invoice. Make sure that team fees are paid upfront before you start playing. Second, every one of your players must sign a league release form. If a player plays a game but doesn't sign the release form, the league reserves the right to forfeit your game. Decide amongst yourselves to designate a team captain or manager. This person will be responsible to make sure players show up to their games, collect team fees, and most importantly, to show up with a game sheet. Try to appoint one manager and one assistant in case the team manager cannot make it to one game. Download a copy, link is provided in the comments, in an Excel format. Fill it out and keep several copies with you and your assistant, captain, or manager. The game sheet must be properly filled out before you show up to the field. List all your players with their full name. You can imagine if you list John and there are 3 Johns on the team, it will be difficult for us to track. Make sure their full name is on the sheet and their corresponding numbers on the back. The same number on the player's back should appear on the game sheet. Please list your goalie in the goalie section. Their number cannot be G. Make sure they have a number on their back that corresponds to that on the game sheet. This game sheet should be handed to the match delegate or league official at least 15 minutes before kickoff. If you have any players who are listed on the sheet and are not going to be present, please cross them out. Our delegate or league official has the right to request ID cards to each name that appears on the game sheet at any time. Failure to show a piece of ID when requested will disqualify you from playing that game. If you persist, the league will default your game. In order to list players on the game sheet, you must make sure that players' names appear on the team page of our website. If the player is not listed, it means they have never signed the league release form. Please make sure the players sign the release form. The game sheet cannot have more than 18 names printed on the sheet for an 11 versus 11 game, or 14 names printed for a 7v7 game, or 10 names printed for a 5v5 game. Any additional names after the initial quota is reached will be crossed out and those names will not be allowed to participate. You are permitted to register an unlimited number of players before a season starts, but once the season commences, you will be allowed to add up to 3 additional players at no charge. Each additional player added after this quota is reached will be charged $10 per addition. Schedules are printed on our website 1 week before the season starts. You may request special conditions for a schedule, such as preference for late games or early games, but there is no guarantee that we will be able to schedule it accordingly. Once the schedule is published, this will be final. Of course, the league reserves the right to make changes without notice, so please make sure you check the schedule often. If you are going to have fans, family, wives, husbands, kids, or office colleagues show up to watch your games, please note they cannot sit on the team bench. They will have to sit at the designated area for fans and spectators. Please also note the club is responsible for these fans. If they get out of hand or violent, the league will impose sanctions on the club. We use a standard size 5 match quality ball approved by our federation. This ball is FIFCO approved. This is the only ball permitted to be used during an official league game. All players must conform to FIFA Law 4 of the laws of the game. This means that players cannot wear watches, Fitbits, jewelry, piercings, chains, bracelets, earrings, rings, and/or glasses. For obvious reasons of security, jewelry cannot be permitted on a person during a match. As for glasses, only sports goggles will be permitted, no exception to this rule. Players who do not have a number on their backs cannot enter the field of play, no exceptions. During a small-sided game, whether be it 5-5 or 7-7, substitution is made on the fly, which means that players can switch with a player on the bench at any time during the course of the game without asking the referee for permission. Of course, the sole exception is for the goalie. The keeper must ask for a switch at a stoppage of game only. By switching on the fly, the switch can only occur within 1 meter of the player's bench. The player on the field must be within the 1 meter radius in order to switch. The player leaving the field of play cannot exit at any other point of the field with the exception of the front of the bench. Players' benches do not switch at the half. The player's bench must remain the same the entire time of the game. Our recreational divisions and our co-ed divisions will adopt the same rules for substitution, except the change must be done at the middle of the field and not in front of the players' benches. For the competitive divisions, changes are done according to FIFA protocol, where a change is requested only at a stoppage of game. For the Premiership division in 11v11, there is a limit of 8 changes during the course of the game, with the presentation of a substitution card. At the half, teams can switch without any substitution cards. All small-sided games 5v5 or 7v7 will play 2 halves of 25 minutes each. On an 11 versus 11 game, we have 90 minutes, 70 minutes, and 60-minute games. Check the division you are in to see how long your games last. All games must start on time. In the event that there are some lateness in terms of the players, the referees will wait up to 10 minutes and 1 second before declaring a forfeit for not having enough dressed players. Games can be stopped at 5 minutes before the start of the next game on the schedule. How many players do you need to start a game? For 11v11, 7 players dressed and ready to play is the minimum to start the game. In 7v7, that minimum is 5 players dressed and ready to play. And in 5v5, it's 4 players dressed and ready to play. In the co-ed divisions, each team is allowed to field a maximum of 8 men on an 11 versus 11 game. This means that the other 3 should be ladies. If the team doesn't have enough female players, the team can start the game, but the league will reserve the right to penalize the team who plays only at 8 men. If a female player receives a red card or can no longer continue to play, the rule will stand that only a maximum of 8 men are allowed to be on the field of play at any time. For 7v7, the rule of maximum men is 5, and for 5v5, the rule for maximum is 4. Your team will require uniforms. The laws of the game require that 2 teams wear the same but distinctive clothing to distinguish between both teams. Further to the rule, every player must have a number on his or her back. This means that it must be printed. You cannot use tape, but you can use a permanent marker or Sharpie to write on the back of the shirt. Make sure this number doesn't conflict with others on your team, as it is the only way for a referee to decipher between players on your team. As a league requirement, your uniforms must have a league patch. This is not a form of advertising, but a form of belonging. As members of the league, you need to be correctly identified. The CCSL provides the league patch on all uniforms that are bought through us. If you purchase your uniforms elsewhere, you will be required to purchase the patch and have them placed on your uniform. The patch must appear either on the right sleeve or on the right side of the chest as a crest. The league reserves the right to limit access to teams that don't have the league patch on their uniforms. Uniforms must be the same. For all divisions, we ask you to attempt to portray your company with the utmost pride and professionalism by having the entire uniform the same amongst your players. Goalies must have a different color from their teammates and from the opposing team and its goaler. Hence, a goalie usually has 2 colors in his or her bag. Of course, there should be a number on the back of this uniform. In the event that both teams show up with the same colors, then the visiting team must change. Don't worry, the league provides pennies just in case. If you need those pennies, please ask our match delegate or league official present at the game to lend you a set against an ID card. This card will be returned to you once you return our pennies. Player benches are located close to the door. Both benches are located at the same place. Substitution can only occur at a stoppage of game. Game resumes only once the door is fully closed. The outage is only when the ball touches any part of the netting, whether it be on the side or on the ceiling. Free kicks can be taken within a 1 meter radius from the wall. All free kicks are indirect, including a corner kick. The start kickoff is equally indirect. There are no goalie kicks. The goalie must pick up the ball and throw it to his or her player on his or her half of the field. If it crosses the center line without touching someone on his or her half, then it is considered a foul. For 7v7, 5v5, and the co-ed 11 versus 11, there are no slide tackling allowed. Referees will tolerate if a slide is attempted to save the ball from exiting the field. For free kicks, on 7v7 and 5v5, the minimum distance is 5 meters. For 11v11, minimum distance is 9 meters 15. All free kicks are encouraged to be taken quickly. Hence, opposing players must immediately back up to the required distance without exception. If a player asks for distance, then the player cannot kick the ball until the wall has been established and the referee whistles for the start of the game. For 5v5 and 7v7, all throw-ins are in fact kick-ins. These are indirect and cannot score from the line unless it is touched by another player. For 11v11, regular game protocol with a full extension from the back of the head to the front. Each referee that works in the league is a professional. Each one must go through a rigorous physical training and must pass a physical exam every year. Each referee must successfully pass a theory exam and a refresher exam every year. Each referee is evaluated on their performance every year. Each referee is a human being who makes mistakes. Please treat them as you want to be treated. No referee deserves physical or verbal abuse. Please treat them with respect. Each game will have a match delegate or league official. This person works for the league and his or her job is to make sure games run on time and smoothly. Please show respect to this person as they represent the league and can lodge complaints against individual players who show dissent. New for this year is a sin bin. A sin bin sanction has been adopted by the IFAB in 2017. The principle of this rule is to limit the amount of yellow cards issued for dissent. When a player expresses dissent, the referee will be permitted to send off that player for a period of up to 10 minutes. During this time, the club will be permitted to send in a substitute. If the player receives a second sin bin for persistent dissent, then the player can no longer return to the game. The player is substituted by the club. This will be considered a sin bin send-off. If the same player receives a second sin bin send-off in 2 consecutive games, this player will receive an automatic 1-game suspension. Persistent offenders will be subsequently sent to a disciplinary committee for further sanctioning. During the course of the season, players who receive 3 yellow cards accumulations are automatically suspended for 1 game. That game has to be served following the 3rd yellow card received. Players who receive 5 yellow card accumulations are automatically suspended for 2 games, and players who receive 7 yellow card accumulation are suspended indefinitely for the balance of the season, including the playoffs. All cards are reset to 0 before the start of the playoffs, with the exception if the player is serving a suspension.